everyone. I think a lot of people are going to be popping on as we get this conversation going, but welcome to the happy hour. This installment, we're going to be talking a little bit about the basement fire project. My name is Seth Barker, First Vice President of ISFSI, and this happy hour kind of gained momentum from not being able to meet up during our social for FDIC this year. So we kind of harnessed this little platform here to have a discussion every other week and some topics out there and kind of promote what's coming down the pipeline. And also just to talk about what's relevant in the industry. I hope everybody is safe and healthy when they're on this call here. You know, we've had a pretty big scare out in here in my hometown. We've been having the opposite trend that seems like everybody else has been having, whereas we're slamming through the roof with this whole COVID deal. So it's been pretty scary in our organization. We had about 30% exposure to our members, so unprecedented times, right? But today we have Commissioner Thiel and Dan Madrzykowski talking about the recent project that seems like it just happened, but it was actually started many years ago, and it's kind of come to fruition here with our in-person delivery and our online delivery that you can access through the UL platform. And I think I would like to pass it on to Commissioner Thiel here, and we'll get the party started. So thanks for being here.
Great, thanks Seth, and thank you all for joining us today for happy hour. The only thing missing, of course, is a drink. But for those of you who can, please do. I'm going to start with just a few slides here for context, and then I think Dan can pick up from there however Seth wants. But I think this will be kind of set the stage a little bit for the conversation. This is a deck that I presented. It's actually bigger than what you're going to see here. But I'm just going to show a couple slides. This is actually something we presented to our city council today in some budget hearings. But I think it'll set the stage a little bit about Philadelphia, about our challenges, and then there's kind of a personal aspect that ties right into the basement fire project we're going to be talking about today. So let me make sure I can make this work. This is us. This was our fiscal year 2020. I won't read those numbers to you. Needless to say, very busy operating environment, very urban. Our probably most of our residential dwellings are actually row houses that were built in the mid 1800s. We've never had a great fire here, so I tell people we kind of do it one day at a time. So again, you can see a lot of fire duty, a lot of EMS, a lot of everything going on, and about 3,000 very dedicated firefighters, medics, and support staff who make all this happen. You can see, and actually there's a map behind me too that has structure fires on it. A lot of these dots are overlapping, but we do have a lot of fires, and I would say, by our definition, we do 7 or 8, actual working fires, room and contents or more every day, 24/7. And then, of course, we also count, like everybody else does, we count other structure fires according to NFPA definitions. We also regrettably have a lot of fire fatalities, and you can see some of those plotted. Some of those are multiple fire fatalities. We're actually up. We had one December 1st. I guess that was yesterday. Yesterday morning, I started out in West Philly, where thankfully we were able to rescue 2 children, but our folks, despite trying, pretty intense fire, couldn't get in to get their mother in time. Burglar bars, a lot of things. Old row house that had been chopped up into apartments. So that actually, this hasn't been updated to reflect that that additional 30th fatality for the year to date so far. You can see our fire fatality rate so far this year is pretty tragic. And again, that's despite the best efforts of our folks. A lot of work, a lot of effort. And we've had a lot of reinvestment in the fire department here over the past 4.5 years. You'll see a slide for that. This is some of the discussion that we're having with City Council about the economic impact of fires. You can see there, this one is updated to today with 30 fire deaths. It's not updated. We really have to update this almost every day. This morning, we had another fire just kind of in Center City here in Philadelphia. We're able to rescue 2 people and then transported 3 to the hospital total, treated by our medics. So that fire-related injuries number is up. And another kind of way of looking at this, the families displaced, we've had 734. That number I haven't updated yet for today. 734 families displaced in home fires this year in Philadelphia. it's more than 2,000 people, 2,164 people burned out of their homes this year so far in Philly. So again, this is all despite the great efforts of our firefighters. You can see there, that's a restaurant fire. One of the things we're talking to folks about is the impact of this on business, particularly small business. That restaurant fire actually was a basement fire. So that we almost lost a company at that fire. That was about 2 years ago. I think that was a 3-alarm job. We had companies crawling in. The fire was underneath them, and this is kind of a classic. For those of you who are familiar with the Mary Pang fire, the report on that from Seattle, a couple decades ago, they could feel the floor was hot. It was a concrete floor, and thankfully they backed out just in time right before the floor collapsed. They had to go defensive. That business still hasn't been rebuilt, but they're working on it, and hopefully it'll reopen soon. We've been doing a lot of reinvestment, as you can see there, restoring cuts from prior years, thankfully, with help from FEMA, some SAFER grants, AFG grants, doing a lot of training with UL and the Firefighter Safety Research Institute. We've been, really honored to work with ISFSI and UL and NIOSH and a lot of others on a variety of different efforts. And where this gets personal really is here. Matt Letourneau, one of our lieutenants, and part of the ULFSRI team. Steve grew up in Delaware County, which is where that research facility is located. And I first met Matt. Steve and Matt grew up together in Delaware County. Steve Kerber, who you know. I first met Matt actually at the training facility where a lot of this work was done, the research facility, when he was actually helping the UL team do some of their research burns. Fast forward to January of 2018, absolutely, terrible morning. I was on my way to a funeral actually for one of our retired firefighters and diverted to what became a 2-alarm fire in North Philly in a circa 1850s row home that had been modified over the years. This was not a basement fire. It was a fatal fire. As they pushed in, there was a resident there who had already perished. And during the course of that firefight, Matt was killed in a collapse of the floor above. The NIOSH report from that was released recently. And Matt was involved at the origins of the basement fire project until we lost him much too soon and under tragic circumstances. One of the reasons Matt was involved, it was personal for him too. Joyce Craig, one of our firefighters, was killed in a fire that started off as a basement fire, also in North Philly, further north. And that for us really makes this project personal. Matt's contribution and Joyce's loss, and again, you can read those reports. We've had, many too many firefighters lost in the line of duty over the years. And so for us, this really was a personal effort, and we're really honored that ISFSI and UL have put Matt's name on this project. And it's one of the reasons why we are so committed to helping to continue this work. And we hope that you'll, drive people to this and all of the great content that's out there. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Seth and Dan.
Yeah, thanks. The project started, I think, 3.5 years ago. Is that correct, Dan? I think it started about 3.5 years ago, and it seems like it was a freight train of a pace at the time, and here we are, getting to the end of the fruition of our efforts. And UL's recently launched a online version of the basement fire. We've been doing a delivery here for I think the last 2 years, and we're about to launch our hot training coming up in the spring, which is grant funded as well. And so I'd like to turn it over to Dan and speak a little bit about what we have available on the UL site for the online platform. I know almost all of my membership at this department has gone through it, and they really like it a lot. And I think it's very intuitive and very, very thoughtful of the way it is mapped out. So Dan, what do you have to say about that?
Well, I guess, getting back to some of the drivers for this project, the Joyce Craig fire in Philly had so many similarities to the Cherry Road fire from 1999 in terms of the construction of the row home, the interior finish, and in some ways how the incident played out with regard to how the basement was ventilated and whatnot, and the flow path. And so as we've been learning more since 1999, certainly it was a tragedy that the same kind of fire had, and the same kind of actions on the fire ground in effect had such a tragic result. So it's, you know, what can we do to improve the knowledge base to give a better understanding that all basements aren't the same, how basements get their air changes, what the fire in the basement can do, whether it's just going to be a smoky mess with limited visibility and low heat, or whether it could rapidly transition into a flashover, as was the case in Philadelphia and in Cherry Road, and of course many others in between those two. And so that was some of the impetus for the ISFSI to go after the DHS grant and work with us to develop the research. And so on our website, and also accessible through the ISFSI webpage, is the research report, and that's been posted there for a few years now. But the idea is, how do we turn that into training, actionable training, and how do we get that out there? And ISFSI has been going around the country doing face-to-face trainings. And, you know, one of the challenges is there just aren't enough knowledgeable instructors to go around. And so we tried to do a stop block measure, if you will, and we did a summary video about a year or so ago that sort of had, you know, here's the top couple of points we want you to take away from this. And we've had that summary video. It's about 15 minutes long, posted on our webpage, and it gets quite a few views. But in October, we were fortunate to be able to release an online version, a shortened version of the 8-hour training class. And so it doesn't take you 8 hours to go through online. It's, as I say, it is a shortened version, but it does give the student an opportunity to get a basic understanding of the important fire dynamics that go on with the basement fires, some understanding that the basements can, you know, draw a vacuum, for example, and that there are 3 different categories of basement fires in terms of ventilation, whether it's no access, meaning it can't get air and you can't get people in or out of the basement other than an internal stair. There's no exterior access, or whether it has limited exterior access, small basement windows that could be on the front or side of the building, but still too small to get people in and out of. But now you could get water in there if that was an opportunity to start cooling things down before you made the interior approach. And then full access, which means you've got large exit windows and or a doorway, whether it's a single door or a sliding glass door. And the key point there is that should that door open unexpectedly while you've got a crew trying to make the stairs, the results could be disastrous. And so you want to take the approach, if you can, of getting water in that basement early to prevent that flashover event. So then you can get crews successfully down the stairs or in the basement. So we've presented some data from the study, as well as hopefully some very good graphics that people can see. And as I say, it's been online now a little more than a month, and in that time, almost 6,000 people have successfully taken the course. So that's really been given the timing there, that's been quite a response that a lot of people have taken it, and we've gotten good feedback on the value that people have gotten from it. So again, we're thankful to have partners like ISFSI to work with to help keep us guided in the path that we want to teach people. What do you want them to do in the street, right? What is useful knowledge to them? What can help them do their job more effectively and safer? And that's really what we're after.
Yeah, so what the research really captured was, you know, what is happening when the door vents, what's happening when the window vents, what happens when the slide out basement window vents, and what does that look like inside? And so we can intelligently and smartly speak to what those tactics look like, and not telling everybody the way they should fight fire, but telling everybody what's the safest way to address that current situation. So, you know, we have a lot of recommendations in the presentation, both on the online delivery as well as the classroom delivery. And what this has really catapulted forward is our next DHS grant before COVID hit was doing a train the trainer, and then doing the deliverable around the country to, I think, 50 deliverables for the hot train, hands-on training for attacking and understanding and fighting basement fires. So we're really excited for that next project to go underway. And we're going to teach a lot about fire dynamics, a lot about nozzle placement, what kind of nozzles worked in the test, what kind of tactics worked in the test really well, and just really back it up by science. I would like to say that, we got a lot of people jumping on, that if anybody has any questions along the way, we have that chat room that I'm kind of monitoring, and I'll just rudely interrupt Commissioner Thiel or Dan to ask that question, or you guys can kind of virtually raise your hand and I'll try to call on you. It's really hard as the window fills up that I can't see everybody's name, so the chat room is definitely the best place to fire off a question. So, as far as did anybody have a chance by raising their hand, to take that online class yet? Okay, great, awesome. Forrest, what was one of your big takeaways from that class?
I just liked matter of fact, what Dan just said there when they talked about the definitions and kind of setting what we're calling all those things, where we've got no access, limited access, and full access. And just the nozzle piece I thought was pretty important too. We're able to look at the effectiveness of the different points of attack of the different nozzles, and it looks like Pete's on there too. And I know Pete had a couple of good points just on the application through those smaller limited access windows in the bungalows and in the single families where you don't have a full full walkout or whatever there. That because we've got a lot of that here in our area. That was one of my big takeaways there.
Yeah, another question that just came up in the chat room is where can we find this class online?
If you go to the UL website, firefightersafety.org, or just Google UL Fire Safety Academy, that'll put you into the place where all our courses are collected and the basement courses there. If you haven't registered with the Academy before, it'll just ask you some basic information, because basically what it'll do for you is keep a transcript. So if you finish multiple classes and you need to print out a certificate to show your work, or just you want to keep it for yourself, you're able to do that. The Fire Safety Academy, basically our learning management system, gives us an opportunity now that we didn't have a year ago, and that is if a fire department wants to identify a super user, they can call our Angie Bennett and get with our folks and get the super user put in place. And then anybody from their fire department that takes the class and passes it, or is in process of taking it or whatever, the super user can see everybody from their department and track their progress. If such as in the case of like Philadelphia, they wanted everybody in the department to take the class. There's ways of tracking that and giving you some capability there.
That's awesome.
And there's no cost.
That's awesome. Yeah, we kind of created a little safety academy within our organization to hit all those classes. It's been pretty successful. For my organization, which is small and get buy-ins very instantaneous and very easy, I was interested on Commissioner Thiel, how did this go over, you being the forefront within the basement fire study and being part of the tech panel, how did this go over in your organization?
Well, we definitely weren't sure. We have a lot of very experienced firefighters, a lot of fires. We had a lot of lessons, a lot of recommendations. I mean, there were a lot of NIOSH recommendations that came out of the report on Joyce Craig's death. And when I came to Philadelphia, that report had not yet been released. So I've been here since May of 2016. That fire occurred in 2014. And not long after I got here, that report was released. And I think, what we did in terms of rolling out that report kind of set the stage for some of this work. We did town hall meetings. And again, at our size, if we want to train anybody on anything, if we want to train our entire workforce for 8 hours, it's about $3.2 million in overtime for that 8-hour block. So what we did was kind of had these town halls and ran them on opposite shifts so people could come and just kind of set the stage and said, look, we understand we have a lot of experience fighting these kinds of fires, but obviously we had a really bad day and we've had other bad days. So what can we do to, certainly appreciate what we're doing, but take advantage of the latest research and the latest science. And we were really fortunate then to be able to enlist ULFSRI as a partner, and me being on the advisory board. But UL has done this for a lot of different organizations, and since that time, we've gotten AFG grants and delivered fire dynamics training to everybody in our department, incident command training to everybody, almost 3,000 people in each one of those. And what we really had was and I think the things I'm about to say are true. I mean, I've worked in departments, 5 different states, all different sizes, shapes, configurations, career volunteer combination. What we had was, certainly we had some naysayers. We had some folks who really stepped up without a lot of prompting. We kind of gave them the opportunity and said, look, here's this course, here's this training, go check it out. We're not going to tell you what to think about it. And they, so this was the UL boot camps, and they went up to, to visit with our colleagues with the FDNY and some other things. And they really embraced it. So we had some champions, and they were the ones who really kind of on a peer-to-peer basis started this wave of change and these conversions. And, now when you see this, we have firefighters, retired firefighters who say, we wish we had known some of these things through the years. And we know this is difficult. And some of them have been very honest and said, look, this was a really hard change to make. And I listened to, that they would say, we listened to these, young guns, they would probably say, because anybody who's not retired is a young gun. And what they were saying made sense. And then as people kind of could see the science and apply that to what they had seen over their careers, it really does kind of make sense. And frankly, we were doing a lot of things that, UL was maybe using different, terms, and we were talking about it a little bit differently, and everybody has their own vernacular for this. I mean, I think when we started the basement project, we spent the whole first day trying to define, as you'll recall, what's a basement. But at the end of the day, the fire doesn't care. And I think folks really, kind of, oh, well, this makes sense to me. I've seen this. I didn't call it that. We didn't think about this tactic. For us, it's normal to do some of these things. And we just kind of, but really having these champions and not, we didn't push people. I didn't go and say, do this, or we're going to change everything. I said, look, we're good at what we do. We've had some really bad days. There's a lot of new science, a lot of new research. Go check it out, see what you think. And really, they ended up kind of converting their colleagues. The other thing I think that's important in this effort right now, this webinar demonstrates that there's been a lot of cross-pollination. So as our folks are talking to folks in other cities, regardless of size or configuration, we all have fires. And I think that's been a big part of this too, is being able to leverage technology, and it makes it easier to bring people together from around the nation and frankly from around the globe. And firefighters are really smart people, and I think if we give them the information and give them the tools, they'll get there.
Yeah, thanks. Dan, what was your biggest takeaway or a couple takeaways from that research that either surprised you or validated what you were thinking as far as tactics of basement fires?
I mean, as you know, when we set up the study, we were setting up the approach, especially from the small windows, for a fire attack from a small window, so that it would be challenged. We had the fire ignite. The seat of the fire was on the opposite side of the basement, 1,200 square foot basement, basically. And there was a stairway in between the window and the seat of the fire, as well as a mechanical room. And we still had tremendous impact on controlling that fire, cooling the fire gases, and enabling somebody to make a push down the stairs quickly and finish the fire off. So I think that some of those were impressive. Some of the data impressive was how fast it was running out of oxygen and how it would pull oxygen out of the bedroom upstairs when the building was closed up. And then once you applied water, how rapidly the oxygen would be replenished in remote bedrooms upstairs, so that if there was a victim trapped there, getting rid of the fire in a hurry really was providing the best service you could for them potentially in terms of then rescuing them and getting them out. So those were some big things. Another thing that's happened this fall is NFPA released a guide to structural firefighting called NFPA 1700. And That was made up of fire chiefs and firefighters, different rank from across the country, a couple from Canada as well. And sort of, again, I'm getting on this page of definitions and what do things mean. And one of the bigger changes in there, I think, is the idea of what is a offensive strategy and what is a defensive strategy. Traditionally, the fire service has defined those strategies based on where you're standing. So if you're outside, it must be defensive, and if you're inside, it must be offensive. And that's been redefined now in 1700 with the idea of what is your plan. If you plan to go interior, then that is an offensive strategy. That offensive strategy might include a shot from the outside with some water to begin fire control from the exterior while you're making entry, or to enable others to make entry. Where previously that thought was, well, we're defensive and then we're transitioning to offensive. No, your intent is to go inside and put the fire out and rescue anybody inside. How you do that then is independent. It's just a matter of what tactics are you using to accomplish your goal quickly and effectively and efficiently. And so I think that that change in thinking will help some people embrace fire, understanding fire behavior, also embrace people understanding that you've got options. It's not one size fits all. When there's a reason why you size up a fire, so you can understand what you've got, what you have, what your resources are, and then make some choices, especially the first engine company on scene, right? The captain, like, what are we going to do? And in many cases, you know, that 95 percentile that you use, we're going in the front door, we're hitting it, and it's going to be good. And in, you know, 5 minutes, it's over. And most of the time that works. But then you have these anomalies, you know, like the Pang fire or Cherry Road or whatnot. You got a basement fire, and there are many others. And you say, well, you know, maybe running or Wilmington, Delaware, for example, going in the front, 2 lines in the front door was not the right answer there, right? And it cost people their lives. So understanding that there's options for that 5% of the cases that could be extremely high risk, how do you take care of that, and how do you best serve your customer and yourselves?
Thanks, Dan. Chief Schaefer, you know, have you guys navigated this basement fire curriculum, the online? I know that we did a deliverable out there in Boston, and I don't know what the culture is like. I know you guys got a tremendous amount of basements in Boston. I grew up in Vermont myself, so that's a real deal, and a lot of no access basements in Boston as well, where it's very difficult and very challenging to find a transitional attack. So did your organization go through this, or how's this embraced, or how's this look in Boston?
So we did the live course. Dan came up, and and it was from New York was John Cirillo delivered that. That was a couple of summers ago, and that was well received. And then based on Beacon Street, we finally got a fire dynamics program going. We've got a whole full-scale prop that uses flow path, and as part of that curriculum, we go over basement strategies as well. So we haven't assigned the online, although I think we're going to be trying to make it available on Target, through Target, for anybody who is interested, but we have not made that mandatory yet.
Is this stuff kind of in line with the way you guys have been doing business in Boston, or has it changed anything?
We're trying to change. It's there was some initial resistance, as I think Commissioner Thiel pointed out. The older guys thinking that was not the right way to go, that was defensive and cowardly, to put it mildly. But it's changing. We're really the fire dynamics training that we have been rolling out has gone pretty well, and it's been well received. And I think we're trying to steer the ship in that direction. So it's getting there.
Thanks for that. It's funny, when we were going through this course and we were kind of doing that 3-year project with the tech panel and doing all the test burns. One of the guys on our tech panel was Chief Cochran out of San Francisco, who's probably one of the most fantastic guys I've ever met in my life. But they had a really bad fire down in Chinatown in San Francisco that they just couldn't get at to it. I think it was 2 floors below grade. And he said, well, let's try this transitional attack piercing cellar nozzle thing and ended up putting the fire out. And this is why this guy's going through our academy. So that's a big cultural shift for San Francisco.
Yeah, I think if you try something new and you get some initial success with it, it becomes much easier then to build on that. So, as of yet, I don't have a concrete example of transitional attack or some of the things we've been trying, but I keep hoping that it's going to come into play, and then when guys see it in action and working, we'll have more success adopting department-wide and sort of setting it in stone.
Hello, Jack Wilson here. Hello.
Sorry, Jack, did you have something?
Yeah, I do. I just want to comment on Dan's comments about Wilmington, Delaware. Since I retired from there in 2015, retired just before the incident happened. Pretty sad moment for us. But I know the Wilmington Fire Department, culturally, like everybody else in this area, where our buildings are no different than Philadelphia or Camden or Trenton, or I mean, we are the same type of construction, same type cities, other than we're way smaller in manpower issues. The culturally sound portions of the Wilmington Fire Department was the reason why that fire didn't go well for them. I mean, we go to them structures 5-6 times a day. There's pictures on our website right now from similar structures they had working fires in the last couple of days there. I know that their SORPs have been changing. It's still a culturally changing process, I guess. It's just like Chief Schaefer said. I know it's kind of sad, and I think that they also, the Wilmington Fire Department is also trying to move forward to a better culture with this. The amount of basement fires and stuff that they do encounter on that. Like I said, I lost 3 good friends, but the issue is as we move forward to the future, and especially the entire state of Delaware, who culturally runs the same way. But it's hard to make that process move forward sometimes. And like I said, I appreciate the hard work of all the other people with this basement fire thing, especially, I got to see some of that a couple years ago when you guys allowed us to come up from the fire school here. But like I said, it's a tough thing. And I just say that the amount of basement fires that they get in that city, and it's no different than anybody else. I'm not trying to say it's different, but it's hard to beat the culture down. So.
Thanks, Jack. Appreciate that. So Dan, what about the type of nozzles that we were using, and what did you find out the best nozzle to use, or what did the guys like best? What was the most productive?
I think part of it was what's the nozzle you have. So if you can find a way to make the nozzle you have that you've got water connected to and right now work for you, absolutely. And I mean, that was one of the reasons why we did a number of the experiments that we did with just like putting a fog nozzle either in a window or down in a hole, because that may be what they have, or a straight stream. And of course, we found that, if you put a straight stream just straight down without being able to bank it off anything or break up the stream in any way, it may not be very effective in terms of cooling the gases. So that's from the floor going straight down. From the window, the straight stream going off the rafters or off walls, that was very effective at reducing temperatures in the basement and allowing a push down. That would allow a push down the stairs. Same thing with the fog nozzle. Now, are things like a Bresden distributor or some of the piercing nozzles that are designed for a high flow rate, 150 gallons per minute or higher, and are designed to really spread the water out and throw it up high to the burning rafters or the burning floor assembly? Absolutely, it's fantastic. Whether you're doing an attic fire or a basement fire, they work very well. But the key thing in many cases is timing, and how can you get water on the fire the fastest? And so that was some of the reasons for using some of the baseline nozzles as well as the specialty nozzles to look at different variations. There may be a case where you've got to use a specialty nozzle because it's in some kind of closed off area you can't get to, or a confined space or what have you, and you may have some luxury of time, if you will, or you may only have 2 people on the fire ground and have no other choice. There's a lot of reasons for picking those things. And again, it gets back to understanding the options that are available to you, looking at the resources that you have that are going to respond to a fire typically, and then doing a little bit of pre-planning to say, what's my plan B? In most of the line of duty deaths that you look at, it's and this is in the past, things are changing, but fire departments have a plan A. And again, that works most of the time for them, and it works very successfully. It's the case when NIOSH gets called when you needed a plan B and you didn't have one. And then in the process of that, all accountability is lost. You don't know where people are, people get separated. Everything on the fire ground just kind of breaks down till you can recover. And the question is, can you recover fast enough before there's the incident? And I kind of liken it to watching my 10-year-old grandson play basketball. The coaches go out there, and for the first play of the game, the coaches position each kid on each side like, you know, you're covering that kid, you're covering that kid, and they have sort of the one play initially. They inbound the ball, you see a pick and roll and whatnot, and the shot goes up, and then after the first shot, and it doesn't go in, there's a rebound and whatnot, then it's just chaos, right? There's everybody every which way, and I think there's an analogy there to some fire departments that they don't have that plan B. What happens if the first shot doesn't hit?
I like it. Chief Thiel, you talked about, you know, putting, you know, how expensive it would be to put everybody through your training program if you have a new concept. Has this influenced anything as far as the boots and the recruit academy? And have you instituted these new tactics or fire behavior within that academy when you're getting the boots to show up for training the first day?
Yeah, a couple of things there. One, I think it's important, and I know preaching to the choir here, every instructor knows this. One class does not a culture change make, or does not a fire department make. So it really does have to be kind of continuous learning. One of the things we did when I first got here, I saw this like box in the corner of a room. I said, well, what's that? Well, we used to have our own cable channel. I said, well, what would it take for us to stand that up again? So we put together, we basically bought what we needed to buy, which wasn't super expensive. And we have PFD TV that's streaming out to all 70 of our work locations, 63 firehouses, 7 other locations. And it's continuous. We're always putting, I mean, the first thing we did was put everything that UL had available up on that PFD TV, and it's in a continuous loop. So we're trying to immerse people in this. And again, it wasn't, we're making you watch this, we're making you watch this. We just take stuff, and including from a lot of your departments, Boston, thank you. The cancer video has been huge for us. We just grab all this stuff and put it on that PFD TV channel, and it hits. I mean, you know, firehouses, the TV's on 24/7. They may not be watching it, but the TV's on, you know, even if it's just noise. And I'm really gratified when I go to firehouses and see that PFD TV on. So that's part of it. Computers are a challenge for us. I think like a lot of big urban departments, you know, we have at our firehouses, whatever it is, you know, 8 to 15 people sharing 1 or 2 desktop computers. But we have been working on trying to get some learning management systems out there, kind of having flyaway kits to deliver to firehouses to do content. But our members are really dedicated, and yours are too. I've actually seen our members trying to hack into our city's own IT networks to try to access the learning management system because it didn't have enough ports. So we're trying to leverage technology. Some of this, though, is old school. I mean, we created a field training unit out of our academy. Those are the folks who've been down for the past few weeks with Dan over in Delaware County, basically just soaking all this stuff up. And they've been going out. So we're trying to also embrace kind of a hybrid delivery model. We used to have this very academy-centric model where if you were going to get training of any kind, jump on the rig, head up to the academy, which is in a very difficult to access part of the city, takes you out of your first due, you got to drive all the way back. So for a 4-hour training block, you're spending an entire shift getting there, coming back from. So we're trying to do the remote stuff remotely and then bring in the field training unit. You know, we're putting them in vehicles, keeping them mobile to kind of go out and do the hands-on stuff. And then occasionally, to put it all together, you'll go to our academy or you'll go to one of the other academies. I know today our folks have been doing flashover stuff down with UL, and I saw Kirby Kiefer from the Delaware County Emergency Services Training Center. So we also, as kind of 6th largest city in the U.S., we've been maybe a little insular over the years. And I think that's really, and again, it's a credit to our members. It's not me. We've really kind of opened that up. And again, our neighbors, Delaware County, Montgomery County, PA, Chester County, PA, have been very gracious, Bucks County, and allowing us to come and use their facilities, to learn from them, to leverage the expertise that's around us. So it really has been this confluence. The point is, it ain't one class. We have to surround people with all this stuff all the time. You know, we've been doing work with Drexel around safety culture and the firefighter research institute they have there, and it's working. A lot of it is working, I think, just because of this immersion. And again, we have some really great folks who are embracing this, embracing the science, and doing that peer-to-peer model. But it does take resources. I mean, we have spent money on field training folks and in the academy. You know, our academy is 9 months long, so it's hard to add things to it. But we are doing things differently there, including trying to flip the classroom there as well. You know, death by PowerPoint didn't work for any of us. We hated it. And, you know, it never worked. It's valuable to a point. So we're also trying to re-rack our academy. And, you know, we're talking about, we put 90 to 100 cadets in there at once. I think last year we had 2 academies going at the same time. So we had 200 some odd people wandering around. We have to do that just to get them through. But a lot of these resources we've been using as well and taking that into the classroom and trying to flip the classroom. So where, and, you know, the folks that we're hiring have no issue with being able to go online. They'll go home and go online and watch something. So why are we going to show it to them again on PowerPoint in the classroom when we could be using that time for scenarios or hands-on? So we're really, it's everything all the time to try to drive this change. And it's really been working. It's a credit to our members that it's working.
Yeah, I think it's new times, and we've demonstrated as well with being in COVID for the last, you know, almost year here, in showing that different delivery models are highly effective with our membership. And, you know, the guys that are coming through the front door as brand new firefighters are already used to this whole learning management software platforms and stuff like that. Hey, Dan, so from a fire dynamics standpoint, you know, I'm just scratching the surface, and I've been following you around for about 12 years now, and you being very, you know, very intelligent about it all. What surprised you, or what backed up what you're already thinking in these basement fire studies from a fire dynamics standpoint?
What surprised me on the basement fire with no exterior access was that it basically pulled a vacuum. So as the fire built up, it creates pressure, and then as the gases cool, they contract, and that vacuum then it went under, so it was negative pressure relative to atmospheric pressure, which then causes the fresh air from the first floor to be pulled down. So the interesting thing there is when we cut a hole at the front door threshold to introduce a Bresnan distributor, the firefighter didn't get a face full of smoke because it was sucking down that hole trying to get air for combustion. And that was a pretty interesting set of tests for those scenarios. The amount of vacuum that it pulled, the negative pressure that it pulled.
Yeah, that, I mean, I didn't even pretend to understand that until you explained it to me. So that was a shocker to me as well. Well, we're kind of in the home stretch here. I just want to kind of highlight, you know, the webinar that we have coming up in January 4th. Is that correct, Dan? I think it's
14th.
14th. Thanks, Lee. So January 14th, doing a webinar on the basement fires. And on closing thoughts, let's start with Commissioner Thiel. Just anything to kind of wrap it up. You were kind of in the home stretch, and anything you want to add?
Again, I think what we're talking about demonstrates the value of having all of these organizations, UL, ISFSI, all these different departments of all shapes, sizes around the country collaborating. I mean, I really think that has been a big part of moving this and making it work. And you know, I'm at I guess I start my 30th year in this business in January, which is hard to believe. And it has changed. Things have changed a lot. You know, they haven't maybe changed as much as we would like, but things are definitely moving. Folks have embraced this, and I really think that these collaborative efforts have been a huge part of that. And I would also encourage everybody to make sure you put Intershoots USA 2021 on your calendar. Come join us in Philly in October of 2021, and you'll be able to see some of this stuff firsthand, and probably still wearing a mask, but we'll definitely be good by then. So come join us.
Thank you very much. Dan, you want to wrap this up for us?
I just want to say that I thought that the training that we were able to do for the Philadelphia Fire Department was incredible. Chief Van Dorp was there helping us with that, and Chief Schaefer and some of his crew from Boston. Captain Mike McCarthy showed what a wizard he is in presenting some flow path information with a alcohol fueled prop, and that was essential for Philadelphia because as they were taking the training on the road, they couldn't burn Class A materials and create smoke all the time where they were, so they found that prop to be very useful. And I think enabling that training group to do what they did, it's just amazing that we met with them and we gave the class last February, and still these some of the folks were down here today. I mean, they've been here for every test, some number of them, but they came down today, and it's wind chill feels like sort of 25 degrees kind of thing. And we've got a fire test going, and they're standing out there an hour before, an hour afterwards, wanting to soak it all in and see what's going on. If anybody online is interested in the kind of tests that we've been running the past few months, if they go to our website, we have a link there for our virtual visitors day that we had Saturday a week ago or so. And you can pull it up on YouTube and watch what everybody got to see live that day, which includes a walk through the prop and seeing the fire experiment, getting an understanding of what we're trying to do with regard to our current research on size up, search, and rescue. So I would encourage everybody to share that with their friends.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. Does anybody have any questions for these two guys while we still got them on the horn before we cut them loose here? Okay, well, hearing none, Commissioner Thiel, Dan, I know you guys are super, super busy today, and I really, really, really appreciate you guys taking time to hang out with ISFSI. It's a big deal for me and the rest of the organization to have some face time with you guys. So thank you very much. So with that, I'm going to stay on the line, and if anybody has any questions, I put my email on the top. If I can't answer the question, I'm going to fire it off to one of the people that I know the answer to. And everybody stay healthy out there. We are doing our virtual conference coming up. Stay tuned. We just finalized that the last couple of days, so stay tuned for that. And we'll see everybody next time. Thanks, everybody. Stay safe, healthy.
Be well,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.
Thanks, Dan.
Hey, Seth.
Yes, sir.
You see, Pete, if you're still on, did you see Joe Pernesti's question on there on the commercial, like type three basements? That might be a good follow up there.
I did not. Where was that at?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we did.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
338 or something like that, Lee, or something.
437. Any specific differences between a residential versus a commercial basement type 3?
I mean, certainly there's differences with the construction method and how you might have to, want to try to get through the floor. But there's also, I guess, the commonalities to look at are, again, with regard to the ventilation. So fuel loads may be different, construction methodology may be different, but the question is, where can it get air, and how much air can it get? Can it flash over on you or not? So if it's a cellar, which means it's sort of a sub basement, whether it's residential or commercial, and there's no exterior ability for it to get air, it's going to be a smoky mess, but you've got some time to work on it a little bit, because the likelihood of it getting enough air to really take off is not going to be there. Now, the caveat to that would be somebody's got pool chemicals or some other oxygen generating chemical down there that will change the game on you in terms of the commercial space. So again, it's are you responding to a hardware store, or are you responding to a commercial office building kind of thing? Pete, you got any ideas on that?
I don't have any ideas. I just want to reemphasize what you said, and this kind of tails into what Commissioner Thiel was emphasizing, is that you've got to immerse guys in this information, and you got to be patient because it's going to take a while. That we're still getting questions like that is kind of interesting, right? As you said, it's about the air. The mechanics of the fire ground will vary based on its commercial, its residential, stuff like that. But the fire dynamics really aren't going to change. The fire dynamics is, we know it's got enough fuel. Where's the air? How much air is it going to get? How do I minimize the air while I maximize my water? And those basic fundamentals apply no matter where you're at, right? I try to say to guys, the fire ground, every fire ground is different, but every fire is not different. And I think we're still a ways away from that fundamental understanding, is that the fire is going to behave the same way if it gets air. And the fire ground might dictate how it's going to get air or where it's going to get air. But the fundamental part of how that fire is going to grow and develop doesn't change regardless, no matter what kind of structure you're in.
Thanks, Pete. Mike?
What I typed in the chat, if you take a look at the Father's Day fire, that would be a good example of a basement fire in a hardware store. And as Dan alluded to, changing up the fuel or fire loads. So that's one to look at if somebody wants to go back and take a look and look at what can happen, because that was definitely, as Dan said, one of those 5% that doesn't fit the model. And those are the ones you have to be looking out for, which like ties back into the size up and picking up on those things. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Dan, thank you so much. I know you're slamming busy out there. Bob, do you have a question? Sorry, buddy.
I have an off-subject question when we get a chance.
Okay. Dan, I know you're super busy. Thanks, buddy. We'll see you next time.
You guys.
Okay, thanks, guys. And Lee, thank you.